Stinky little recording started. Okay, so I mentioned it in the stream. What I will be talking about, I didn't really go into any details that much, but we're going to be talking about conditioning. This is a behavior focused kind of shtick. That being said, we're going to keep watching my point of view. I decided to play ADC this game because, why not? But we're going to talk about conditioning and I guess the overall idea of how it works. So there is um, classical and like operant conditioning, and we're going to talk about like what it means to condition things. So if you don't know about the kind of test they did the Skinner test on this box, the Skinner box on these rats, where they would have a button inside of the box. The button is pressed, and a rat receives a little tasty snack. So that is what is known as a positive reinforcement conditioning with a fixed ratio. So what that means is action happens, response happens, um, like it's very clear and very just like for effect. Like you do an action, you get something to reinforce that action immediately. Um, so let's do a couple of other examples. As a parent, let's say you want your kid to be able to eat their food and eat all of their dinner because you're like, okay, well, I am cooking for my kid. I certainly hope they don't, you know, have terrible habits. Well, how we can condition them and reinforce this habit is through saying, hey, if you finish your dinner, okay, actually, let me start over. There's positive and negative. Positive does not mean um, good, and negative does not mean bad. It means additive and subtractive. Reinforcement is what we do to help and bolster an activity, whether it is through positive reinforcement being get a reward, or negative reinforcement, which is we're going to take away something that could potentially be seen as an obstacle for you. And then the same thing goes for punishment. So positive punishment, you do something wrong, and then I am going to make sure you know that here is a punishment that is additive into your life. I'm going to give you a stimuli to let you know that you've been punished. And then a negative punishment would be, since you did this, I am going to take away a stimuli in your life. Um, yeah. We are going to look at an example of a goal being, I have a child and I want them to eat all of their dinner. Well, I can positively reinforce them by saying, hey, since you cleared your plate, which is an action I want you to continue doing, you are going to receive a dessert. Stimuli is dessert, the positive stimuli that I'm adding into their life. Um, Now, if they did not eat all of their dinner, well, I can give them a positive punishment. What does that mean? Well, since you did not clear your plate, you are going to get hit. Obviously, I would never hit my kid, but that is an example. Like, you're going to get uh, a foot up your ass. That's what you're going to get. Taking a page out of Red Foreman. Um, but it's additive. It is the idea that I want to get across, is that I am not taking something away, or I am not doing something. I am doing something that is additive into your life. It could be that I am going to make them do the dishes. Since you did not eat all of your dinner, you are going to get the duty of doing all of the dishes. Okay, so now that we've looked at positive reinforcement and positive punishment, let's talk about negative reinforcement and negative punishment. So, my son or daughter is doing well in school. Well, how that's good. I'm very happy that my child is performing well in school. Well, what can I do to negatively reinforce some of the habits? Well, since my kid has a test coming up, all right, let's say that they have a test coming up, and I want them to be smart. I want them to be able to take the test and do well. Um, so if my kid passes the test, alhamdulillah, like, since you passed the test, that means that you do not have to do the allotted 1 hour of study time at home. You know, I make sure that you sit down at a desk and do an hour of study. Well, since you passed your test, I believe that you do not need that study time because you've shown to me that you are able to do it on your own. Um, the next thing that comes out is if my kid fails the test. Okay, well, how does it look if a kid fails a test and I need to do a negative punishment? Well, since you failed your test and I, as your parent, allot 1 hour of video game time, I am going to now take away that video game time. So this is a way to incentivize the behavior of, I would love to pass my test. Um, so there's a quote that says, if you want ants to come, you put sugar on the floor. Charles Munger. This is a very, very basic way to understand that what we get is what we reward ourselves with. Um, so if you wanted to get ants, you're going to reward yourself by putting sugar on the floor. Um, that being said, how can this kind of behavior be attributed to League of Legends? Well, let's take a look at a fixed schedule. So, okay, so, oh my god, it's all over the place for me. We now have a couple of different things. Another box plot of how we can keep the behavior coming and make sure that we don't, falter in our ways. Make sure we don't lose the habits that we're embolstering. Because once if I say that, oh, you eat your food and you get your dessert. Well, if at a certain point I go, well, my kid knows that they're supposed to eat all of their food, I might just say like, oh, well, you ate all your food. There's no dessert tonight because I didn't have anything prepared. But like, they might be like, well, why am I incentivized to continue eating my food if I'm not going to get a dessert every time? So there's a drawback to some of these things, and you want to effectively push yourself to be able to make sure that an action that you're reinforcing or punishing is able to be kind of ingested and learned and comprehended fully by your body and your brain. So at the start of everything, we have neutral stimuli. In a game of League of Legends, everything that we kind of understand and know is neutral, right? Well, if you first started playing League of Legends, you may know that, hey, minions are how you get gold, so I gotta kill the minions. Well, if you don't know anything else aside from that, maybe you don't know the very fact that minions give you gold. Maybe you did not know minions gave you gold, and maybe you didn't know that gold is really good for you. You get a bunch of items for it. So we have neutral stimuli of minions. How can we reinforce that? That getting minions is good. Well, the game does a very good job of already doing that. When you kill a minion, you get a little thingy on the top of your head that says, "I got this much gold." I have certainly seen people take this setting off. They say, maybe it clutters your screen too much. But if you're struggling to CS, maybe you start looking at your character more as you're farming so that you can maybe increase the sound effect of that specific thing of like, hey, I got I got a minion. I should get a reward. I got my gold reward. That is an incentivized action that is being positively reinforced. You do an action of killing a minion, you get gold. The punishment of not killing a minion is not getting the gold. You maybe don't take away a stimuli, but you just don't give the stimuli. So that is a positive reinforcement with a negative punishment where you're not taking away anything and you're not getting anything. It's maybe a neutral punishment, but since you got it would be negative because there is an interaction, there's a transactional understanding between farming and all this stuff, and that is I kill a minion. If I kill that minion with my last auto attack, my reward or my reinforcement is that I get gold. My punishment is that I do not get gold. So you have positive reinforcement and negative punishment. Well, if I am going to want to make sure that this stays in my head as long as possible, something that I maybe want to do is figure out how I can better assess things after the fact, and see, is my reinforcement punishment system working effectively inside of my brain? Um, am I receiving everything that I should receive, or is it enough stimuli? Is it stimulating enough to be beneficial to me? And one of those things can look like is different schedules, and how to, like, I guess, wean or like maintain this level of conditioning in your body and in your brain. So a fixed ratio is this reinforcement is given after a fixed number of responses or behaviors that you're having. So if my behavior is um, sorry, I'm like listening to this shit half the time. It's hard to focus sometimes. But basically, it's the same every single time. And if you maybe are reviewing your game and you're like, well, I did good on farm, so I don't really have to focus on this game. Okay, maybe you did like this thing where you watch every single game every single day. You watch every single one of your games. Okay, that is fixed. Now, if you don't watch your games, you might stagnate in your growth. Um, Now, if you vary that ratio, if your ratio of reinforcement or punishment is given after, you know, a varied amount, like you might be sitting there looking at each game more intently because you're like, oh, well, I didn't look at a game today. Maybe I should look at this one. And now you're really intently focusing, and you're like, oh, well, actually, I did a good thing here and a bad thing there. Um, it's actually a little bit harder to do with I think some of this stuff, but I'm sure there's a way to actually like put it out. So like this is again like I've I have some terrible scatterbrain kind of thoughts, but yeah. And then I think the kind of next little touch is just another a mention of like this is like these things. This is human behavior. And if you know what I said in a couple of videos ago, I said like it's a CBT. It's a cognitive behavioral tool. Cognitive behavioral therapy is based on a lot of this work from this Skinner guy who did a lot of research on how the human body and human brain reacts to stimuli and based on behavior. So with a known behavior, how does our body respond, or how does our body or brain respond and effectively be like, how does it receive that stimuli and implement it into our life? um oh man, I'm blanking on what I maybe want to say. Oh right, it's CBT, right. So there's this behavior model. The behavior model is ABC. The CBT tool, cognitive behavioral therapy tool, is also ABC. For the sake of like understanding what ABC means, we're going to stick solely to exactly what it means, in an understandable way. Because I think it's like antecedent is the A in the behavior model, but I don't care about that. It's an activating event. It's an event that happens. B is going to be your behavior, and C is your consequence. If you're not constantly thinking about activating event or action taken, followed by your behavior and response, and then ultimately a consequence of that behavior and response, you're not going to be able to, I guess, effectively and confidently kind of change what needs to be changed. Um, take let's say top lane. Okay, my activating event. I don't get um, my wave. Like I lose 6 minions. My behavior is I get a little bit tilted, and I'm frustrated because I lost all that CS. The consequence of that is maybe I start to lose even more CS because now I'm hyper fixated on the fact that I lost CS, the fact that I can't get any more CS, and it's this slippery slope down, down, down. Um, a way to maybe avoid this is to think a little bit more like intently and positively about like, um, okay, well, I'm struggling with this. I made a mistake. How can I fix it? Obviously, I need to get more farm. Um, and then maybe looking at your position. Am I in a position that is ultimately way too far back? Um, or way too far behind to actually like think about anything. I don't know, man. My brain's freaking fried right now. It's hard to think. I mean, like, I'm doing this because I want to truthfully apply a lot of these things to video games because I think it's going to be a lot easier for us to not only work on ourselves if we can apply it to a video game, but in in the action of applying it to what could possibly be seen as the mundane or a hobby is the realization um, of healthy habits within our lives. Um, and obviously, like if you have more thoughts and like anything you want to talk about, like I would love to like research a topic a little bit more. I have a lot of things that I read. I use Google Scholar a lot. I have the Firefox plugin to look at scholarly articles for free, legally, by the way. It is through legal means, um, but yeah, it's something that I really want to put out there. And I guess like when I was driving, I kind of had this idea of it, and my thought process was, well, if I'm in the top lane and I am winning or losing, I want to think of myself as the student attempting to learn, and what is happening in my lane is that conditioning effect, whether I am reinforcing a behavior or I'm being punished for a behavior. If, let's say, I am giga stomping my lane, well, maybe the positive reinforcement that you see is, oh, I'm a level up on this guy, so I get more experience, or maybe you get more gold, or maybe you get more tower plates, you get more pressure on the map, you're pulling more people to you so that everything else can happen easier around the map. So this is kind of like this positive thing where things are happening to you, where it's a positive reinforcement. um, and maybe uh, a way to think of a positive punishment is that you're a student in the lane. You're not playing this lane because you're the master of the lane and you're the best. Like you're whatever rank you are. I'm emerald. I'm obviously not the best at anything. I am learning my shit. So I'm getting punished by if I'm in the top lane and I am getting zoned off by of experience. Like let's say that I now need to say, hey, I am being punished because I am not getting experience. They have taken away experience. And you'll see this a lot. It's this positive reinforcement and negative punishment kind of diametrically like opposites, but they often come together. When you do something good, you get something good in a game. When you do something bad, you don't get something good. Um, and you might be able to say, okay, well, maybe if I do something bad, you get a bad teammate. Now your teammate might be getting mad at you, start pinging, and he's flustered and focused only on you. Well, that's not your fault, but it's another way to maybe look at a positive punishment that happens to you. Or if you start getting behind, you lose your summoners in a trade that you should not have taken. Okay, well, the punishment there may not happen until a little bit later. You get punished because you lost your flash. Well, um, in a sense, yeah, I don't have my flash anymore, so my flash has been taken away. However, if they were to positively punish you, that might look like the jungler beelining it straight to your top lane to gank you because you do not have your one escape tool. So since you took a bad trade and flashed away, you got ganked. Um, it's stuff, I guess, like stuff like that maybe you can like start to think about maybe a little bit more, and maybe I can think about it a little bit more so that I can more concisely and eventually effectively communicate it so that it can be applied to almost any scenario, or more palatable way of communicating it so that it is easier to implement and apply to how we play video games and how we can improve. So that's the video. I gotta go find a WikiHow image.